Ram 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 Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Ram 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 Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Ram 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 Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Ram 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 Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Ram 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 Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Ram 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 Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Ram 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 Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Ram 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 Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Ram 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 Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Ram 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 Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Ram 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 Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Ram 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 Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Ram 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 Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Ram 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 Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Ram 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 Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Ram 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 Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Ram 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 Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Ram 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 Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Ram 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 Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Ram 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 Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Ram 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 Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Ram 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 Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Ram 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 Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Ram 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 Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Ram 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 Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Ram 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 Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Ram 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 Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Ram 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 Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Ram 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 Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Ram 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 Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Ram 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 Hare. Hare Krishna
Hare Krishna Vancha Kalpatarubhyasya Kripa Sindhubhyev च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः. अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय. श्रीला प्रभुपाद की जय. Assembled devotees की जय. Hare Krishna. Thank you everyone for joining. Please forgive me for interrupting your ecstatic chanting. May I know who all joined this morning?
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, all glory to Srila Prabhupada. This is Neetu from Baltimore.
Hare Krishna Neetu Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much Mataji for joining every day and giving us with association. Welcome to the call. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Vinita Gandharvi. Please go ahead, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna Mataji, please accept my humble obeisance. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to Sri Guru and Gaurang, all glories to all the small devotees. This is Shashidhar joining from Texas. Hare Krishna.
Shashidhar Prabhuji, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much Prabhu for joining every day and chatting. So welcome to call.
Hare Krishna. Go ahead, Mataji.
That's okay, Mataji. You can go ahead.
Hare Krishna, Vinita Gandharvika Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Guru Maharaj ki jai. This is Shyamangari Vedas with Charlotte.
Hare Krishna, Shyamangari Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much Mataji for joining and giving your association. Welcome to the call. People, thank you for every day sharing this screen.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavat Pranam. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada and Sri Guru and Gauranga and all the assembled devotees. Yashamati from Chicago.
Hare Krishna, Yashamati Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much Mataji for joining and chanting early morning, mid morning and giving your association. Welcome to the call.
Hare Krishna Vinita Gandharvika Mataji, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada and all the assembled devotees. This is Indulekha Karuna Devi Dasi from Lincoln.
Hare Krishna, Karuna Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much Mataji for joining every day and giving your association and all glories to your services. Welcome to the call.
Hare Krishna Mataji, please accept my humble obeisances. Jai Shri Prabhupada. This is Preeti Vilasini Devidasi from Atlanta. Thank you so much, Vinita Gandharvika Mataji, for your warm welcoming. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Vilasini Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much Mataji for joining and giving your sweet association every day and all glories to your services. Hari Bol. Hare Krishna, it is 10 o'clock. We will start the recording here.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Good morning, Jen.
Sorry.
No problem, Mataji. Hare Krishna. Welcome to the Bhakti Sangha Japa conference call. Today, before we are starting the session, I would like to read today's Srila Prabhupada quote, 8th November. Just like a deceased person, the more he comes back to his health, it becomes pleasing more and more. Similarly, the more we come close to Krishna consciousness, certainly it will be pleasing because Krishna is the reservoir of all pleasures. Letter to Umapati, November 8, 1969. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Who is Prabhuji? Yes, Prabhuji is there. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much, Prabhu, for joining and giving your valuable time and association. Today we are very fortunate to have His Grace Govardhan Giri Prabhu to enlighten us on the topic of Caitanya Bhagavata, Khanda, chapter 13, 175 and 176 verse. Please take over the call, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Prabhuji, your voice is not clear. I mean, it's very low.
Okay, I'll try. Hare Krishna, am I audible now?
Yeah, yes, Prabhuji. Now it is okay.
Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tatho Jayamudhirayed. Nashtaprayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. Bhagavat Yuddhama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangam Langhayate Girim Yat Kripa Tamaham Mande Sri Guru Dinatarinam Paramananda Madhavam Sri Caitanya Ishwaram. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nidinamine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So we are reading from the Caitanya Bhagavat of Srila Vrindavan Das Thakur. And we are in the Adi Khanda chapter 13 entitled Defeating Digvijayi. And we are reading from text number 175 onwards. So this is the section. Yeah. This is the section where Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is discussing with Pandit Kesava Kashmiri after defeating him in that very famous duel where Kesava is exhibiting his Sanskrit poetic prowess, basically his knowledge, and then how Chaitanya Mahaprabhu makes him humble by doing what he does. So after that, now Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is giving some very valuable and wonderful instructions to Kesava Kashmiri. So that is what we see in these texts now. So text 175 goes like this. Ete ke mahanta sabha sarva parihari karena Ishwara seva dhrida chitta kari. Translation. That is why devotees renounce material endeavors and serve the Supreme Lord with firm determination. Commentary. Considering all these points, the magnanimous devotees give up desires for and dependence on all material assets and engage in devotional service with full determination for the duration of their lives. Some very important instruction by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. We'll also read text 176. Eteke chadiya vipra sakala janjala Sri Krishna charana giya bhajaha sakala. Translation. Therefore, O Brahmana, give up all materialistic association and immediately begin to worship the lotus feet of Lord Krishna. Commentary. That is why you should give up the desire for external material advancement and begin to worship the lotus feet of Sri Radha Govinda without wasting a moment. Now that Sri Kesava Bhatta has given up the inappropriate purport of the 6 branches of philosophy that he was initiated into before receiving these instructions of Sri Gaurasundara, the 10 verses composed by Srila Nimbarkacharya Pada appeared in his memory by the mercy of Mahaprabhu. Gaurasundara's instruction to serve Radha Govinda inspired him with his predecessor Guru's unexpressed emotions, which manifested in his heart in the form of verses. Since before receiving the Lord's mercy, Kesava Bhatta was indifferent to these verses composed by his predecessor Gurus, he displayed negligence for the service of the lotus feet of Radha Govinda and eagerness to accumulate material fame in the form of becoming a Digvijay. Om Tat Sat. Amajnanadimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yana Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Hare Krishna. So today is, at least in India, this is the last day of Kartik, and everybody is immersed in hearing the Leelas of Lord Damodar, reading the Bhagavatam, and getting transcendental bliss out of this constant engagement in hearing, reading, singing about the glories of the Supreme Lord. And here, today's verses are also very, what do I say, very relevant to us in Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's instruction to Kesava Kashmiri. One thing that goes very obviously in this particular interaction between Kesava Kashmiri and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, it's all about Panditya. Now, when we see the early Leela of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as Nimai Pandit, that's very, very interesting to see. As Nimai Pandit, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was the topmost Pandit. Of course, he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and then he does not require some, artificial education to become a Pandit. But nevertheless, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu displayed Panditya in a way that is unmatched. And also at that time, Navadvip was the seat of learning. So Mahaprabhu, Nimai was a very big Pandit. There were other Pandits as well, none as smart and as great as Nimai. And it is to that Nimai Pandit, Lord Gaurasundara, that this Kesava Kashmiri is coming. And his intention is that, if I defeat Pandits from a place well known for Panditya, then I will become even more famous, because you go and defeat somebody in a very nondescript place, you don't get that much fame. So this Kesava Bhatta, his main intention of his Vedic education was to establish his scholarship. And in the commentary by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, the Gaudiya Bhashya, he is speaking about how Kesava Bhatta is misconstruing the bhashyas, the Shaddarsanas, the 6 philosophical conclusions of the Vedas. And by doing that, he has been exposed by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu for his lack of proper understanding. Now you see, this entire body of Vedic knowledge and the process of studying it, we must also understand how Kesava Kashmiri as a Pandit became very puffed up. It's basically because this is something, this entire body of Vedic literature, when you take it, it is not so easy. It is not at all easy. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, because he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, so at a very young age, he studied all the Veda and the Vedanga and became an expert. But normally it takes years and years of tremendous amount of concentration and a lot of austerity in practicing it, and to become an expert in that, because you have to learn tarka, nyaya, and how to argue the same point and prove it right and then prove the same point wrong. These are all taught in the study of Vedas. That is actually the system or style of studying this. And also, as a student of Veda, they also teach the Shad Darshanas, the 6 darshanas, starting from Sankhya through all the Mimamsas they take through. So, studying all these things makes one a Pandit, great expert, etc., etc. And then, what do these great Pandits do basically is that they argue with one another. They argue with one another, and they, one will accept defeat and the other will be declared victorious, because they would be arguing in the midst of many other experts. And then those experts will judge whose argument is going the right way, because there is laid down procedures for all these things. Currently, the system is completely lost. So we can't even properly comprehend when we speak about how Kesava Kashmiri became so puffed up. And that is why he was very puffed up. And also, we must understand that while we do this kind of philosophical study, just like what happened to Kesava Kashmiri, there is a very great chance or a great danger of becoming puffed up. Normally we understand, or the thumb rule is that if you become more knowledgeable, you will become humble. That is the thumb rule. That is how it is supposed to be. And we know that little knowledge means very dangerous. That will make us very puffed up. So Kesava Kashmiri is something like that. So now we may think that then how did he become Digvijay and how did he defeat so many people? The point is that knowledge alone or gathering knowledge alone will not make one enlightened. When you actually apply the knowledge that is gained, that is when you become enlightened. Simply by gathering knowledge and then arguing based on that knowledge does not make one very elevated. That is why Srila Prabhupada was always against this armchair philosophers. Armchair philosopher means I know some philosophy, I will sit on my armchair and you will sit on your armchair, and then we will both be discussing it threadbare, and then we will argue, and I defeat you, tomorrow you defeat me, day after tomorrow I defeat you. And we never apply that philosophy. And that way what happens is that although we may feel that we are very learned, etc., etc., it becomes useless because we don't apply it. It becomes useless when we don't apply it. That is what we see. That is why we see that there are a lot of so-called Indic scholars, INDIC. I don't know how many of you have heard Indie scholars means there are people in Europe, people in US, people in other parts of the world who claim to have studied all this Vedic literature, and then they will, make big arguments. They will present papers, all these things, and most of their conclusions will be anti-Vedic, which they would have drawn from the Vedas, and they will make a very good job arguing about it, trying to establish it, etc., etc. To what end? Neither are they getting benefited, nor are their audiences getting benefited. So this entire thing about acquiring knowledge, one should know what is the purpose of acquiring knowledge. It is very important. What is the purpose of acquiring knowledge? That is what Mahaprabhu is telling Kesava Kashmiri, Eteke Mahanta Sabha Sarva Parihari Karena Ishwara Seva Drida Chitta Kari. In the previous shloka, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu told him that conquering the world is not the proper use for knowledge. The proper use of knowledge is to worship the Supreme Lord. Try to understand, when one gives up his body, he cannot take wealth and reputation with him. Continuing from that, Mahaprabhu tells Kesava Pandit that is why devotees renounce material endeavors and serve the Supreme Lord with firm determination. So, it is not that devotees don't have knowledge. Not that devotees lack knowledge that, they are now engaged simply in chanting the holy name. You may think that, we may mistakenly think, many people mistakenly think that because these people are not very good in, quoting Upanishads and quoting Puranas and all the Bhashyas, etc., that is why they are simply chanting. No. It is because here, as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, they understand that the ultimate end of all knowledge is to worship the Supreme Lord. And Mahaprabhu also tells him that because in the end, when the time comes for one to give up one's body, all this knowledge will not help. Sripad Shankaracharya in his Bhaja Govindam, he also says that Nahi nahi rakshati dukring karane. Bhaja Govindam, Govindam, Bhaja Muthamate. So even Sripad Shankaracharya said that, this dukring, that is some Sanskrit thing, doing all that, nahi nahi rakshati, that will not save you. So simply acquiring Vedic knowledge, arguing about it, and not coming to any conclusion. This is also told by Yudhishthira Maharaj in Mahabharata, that dry arguments are always inconclusive. Therefore, Mahajana Yena Katha Sapanta. Therefore, Yudhishthira Maharaj said one should simply follow the footsteps of the Mahajanas. Because by dry arguments based, even if it is based on Veda, it will not lead to any conclusion, because I am not going to accept your version, you are not going to accept my version. So what will happen? You lose your way, I lose my way. Whereas, as Yudhishthira Maharaj says, if we simply follow the path shown by the Mahajanas, then we both will not lose our way. That is why Mahaprabhu is telling here to Kesava Pandit that you have to give up this type of argumentative knowledge and showing the example of devotees. That is why devotees renounce material endeavors and serve the Supreme Lord with firm determination. See, this getting name and fame, Janam, Dhanam, all these things, they look very attractive. Even on the basis of one's Vedic knowledge, one can gather Janam and Dhanam. One is very expert in handling these subjects. One will make Dhanam, one will also have Janam. But will that help? So Mahaprabhu says, because when the time comes, neither the Janam can help nor the Dhanam can help. When the time comes to leave this body, one may have thousands of followers, one may have lot of Dhanam, and one may also have Vedic knowledge. Unless one has utilized that knowledge to practice what that knowledge is meant to bring about. That is why it is very, very important that Jnana, if it is not converted into Vijnana, then that Jnana will be completely a waste of time. That is why Srila Prabhupada always said that while we do Swadhyaya, which means studying of the books, we must also be engaged in sadhana. Sadhana and Swadhyaya should go hand in hand. Only then result we can see. And Swadhyaya is there so that it will help solidify our sadhana. That is, the philosophical knowledge that we gain will give us enough footing in order to do our sadhanas very nicely. So now the next question may come as to then, if sadhana is everything, if chanting the holy name is everything, which is what we understand. The essence of everything is within this chanting of the holy name. There is no doubt about it. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is very clearly told, Golokera Prema Dhana Harinama Sankirtan. So Harinam Sankirtan will give Goloka Prema. So that is the essence. So that is the most important thing. But because our brains are materially contaminated, because our brains, our intelligence is materially contaminated, we need to cleanse that by using the cleaning mechanism given by Prabhupada through his purpose. That is why when Prabhupada, during Prabhupada's Leela time, in the case in American court, they said that ISKCON is brainwashing. And disciples came to Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada, and told him that, Prabhupada, they are saying that we are brainwashing. So Prabhupada said, yes, I am washing your brains because your brains are fully contaminated. So washing our brains through his instructions, that's what Prabhupada has done. So on one hand, we need to cleanse all our material conceptions that we have, due to our material upbringing, material interaction, material education. All these things bring, along with them, they bring their own quantities of material contamination. And in order to come out of those material misconceptions and be properly situated on understanding reality, we must have Swadhyaya. So Swadhyaya along with sadhana will help us. So here, this Keshava Pandit is being reminded by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. You may know so many things. Later Mahaprabhu also consoles him, saying that actually you are a very great Pandit, no doubt about it. Because Keshava Pandit also understands that, he was thinking that I always had the Kataksha of Saraswati. And how is it that Mother Saraswati made me do these mistakes? And Kesava Kashmiri, he is also a very intelligent person. So he concludes that there must be some person who is actually the controller of Ma Saraswati, who has actually made me do this mistake. By whose influence Saraswati Ma allowed me to make these mistakes. So he was intelligent enough to understand that the person with whom I am now interacting is not an ordinary person. That he understood. He knew. So now Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is taking the role of his instructor and informing him. Eteke chadiya vipra sakala janjala Shri Krishna charana giya bhajaha sakala. Therefore, O Brahmana, give up all material association and immediately begin to worship the lotus feet of Lord Krishna. So, one thing is that whatever knowledge we may be acquiring, whether it is Vedic knowledge or material knowledge, we must understand that if we do not properly comprehend and properly utilize that, how dangerous it can be for us. Just like the case of Kesava Pandit here. Because in the purport, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur is speaking about the 10 instructions of Nimbarka Acharya. Because basically, Kesava Bhatta is in the parampara of Nimbarka Acharya. And Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur is pointing out that Kesava Pandit had actually diverged from the original instructions of Sri Nimbarka. Nimbarka Acharya, as we know, predates Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So, and Kesava Bhatta is also much older to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So, Kesava Bhatta is actually one generation before Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Kesava Bhatta is a full, he's an adult, where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in this situation he is a very young boy. So, by age also he is very senior to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and he is also, very knowledgeable, and he is well known all over the country to being a very great Pandit. But now he is actually taking instructions from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu by accepting his defeat in front of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So it is not that, he was so puffed up that he could not accept the instructions of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He was now willingly, very humbly standing in front of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and listening to Mahaprabhu. Although later he also gave up that instruction and he was on to his own kind of parampara. That also comes later in these texts, as we will see. But at this point, we are focusing on what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is instructing. And that instruction is that give up all materialistic association and immediately begin worship the lotus feet of Lord Krishna. So actually, this is the essence of spiritual life. This is the essence of spiritual life. As Chaitanya Mahaprabhu instructed, Asatsanga chadi ei Vaishnava achar. So, Vaishnava achar, Vaishnava behavior means giving up asat sangha. So that is exactly what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is telling Nimbarka Acharya also. Because what is, not Nimbarka Acharya, Kesava Kashmiri. Because what is Kesava Kashmiri's asat is his conclusions, what he has made out of his study of the Shaddarshana, that is asat. You understand? If you draw the wrong conclusion after all your studies, then that means your conclusion is asat. It is not true. It is not valid. It is dangerous. It is useless. All these things simultaneously we can see. So, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is telling Kesava Kashmiri that give up all these wrong conclusions And for the greater public, it is give up all kinds of wrong company. Wrong company, asatsanga, means it is not only people who are completely materialistic. It is also those people who are so-called followers of Vedas, but they will draw materialistic conclusions out of it. You understand? There are many people who like to lead a life based on dharma. They would say that, I want to be very dharmic. But the intention of being dharmic is to be materially well situated. This is what we will see even in the, what you call, very Vedic people in Kali Yuga. We will find that people may say that I am following the Vedas. People may say that I am following dharma. I am a vegetarian. I do all my worship, I do all the Devata Priti and I do all the Pitru Priti. All these things I am engaged in and I live a very paka life. Why? What is the idea? So that I have a very comfortable material situation. So although he is better than the gross materialist, at the end of the day, he is also a materialist. Why? Because intention is materialistic. So in Kali Yuga, you will find majority are adharmic materialist, but you will also find a small minority of dharmic materialistic. As far as devotional service is concerned, as far as satsanga is concerned, all these things are to be avoided. All these things are to be avoided, and one must try and take shelter of those people who have completely given up these conceptions. That is what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is instructing to Kesava Kashmiri here. That please give up. Please give up wrongful conclusions. Please give up this puffed up attitude of trying to be a Digvijayi, trying to be very popular. Because in Kali Yuga, popularity is another very, very dangerous thing. Popularity is another very, very dangerous thing, because I think that if I am more popular, that means somehow I am better than the other man. Is it not? That is why we see that even in all these so-called spiritual organizations, many things we see that they will do everything so that they can become very popular. That means Janam. The more Janam I attract, it means that I am somebody very powerful, that I am something better. No, that is why so many people are following me. Right? That is how many people justify, that there are this so and so Swamiji is there and he's having a huge following. And they will ask, if he does not have something, why so many people are behind him? Like this. So Srila Prabhupada has taught us through his purports how to identify who is real and who is fake. That Srila Prabhupada has taught us through his purports. So as far as followers of Srila Prabhupada, the Prabhupada Anugas, we are all Rupa Anugas. Prabhupada writes in Nectar of Instruction that we are all followers of Rupa Goswami, and specifically within ISKCON, we are followers of Srila Prabhupada. So Srila Prabhupada has given Rupa Goswami's instructions through his purports, and we are expected to follow those instructions of Prabhupada, which makes us Prabhupada Anugas. So we should be very clear and be able to discriminate as to who is real and who is fake. What is a real conclusion? What is a fake conclusion? is mere popularity, what do you call, a standard or a yardstick for somebody being more spiritual than somebody else? So these are all coming within that purview of asat sangatyaga, all coming within that purview of this materialistic association, materialistic conception. To think that somebody who is more popular has to be spiritually more powerful. We must understand that Srila Gaurakishore Das Babaji had only one disciple. Is that a yardstick by which you will judge Gaurakishore Das Babaji's spirituality? The fact that he had only one, the fact that he didn't have many. So, as Rupa Goswami, Srila Rupa Goswami says in Nectar of Instruction, it is very difficult to understand who is a real Vaishnava. And in many cases, we may misjudge. And therefore, we must know that all such things fall under this materialistic association. Because at the end of the day, this desire for dhanam, desire for janam, both are equally materialistic. One is very openly materialistic for dhanam. And some others may say that I am not after dhanam, but they will be after janam. They want big following. Because with that, I think that, somehow I have become, I am more elevated. But like Srila Prabhupada says, such things are more or less like blind leading the blind. So you will never reach the destination. So we have to follow the orders of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, that don't be taken in by any type of wrong conclusion. Even if it is a conclusion, a purported conclusion of the Shad Darshanas, if it is not in line with the ultimate conclusion of pure devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, all other conclusions are materialistic. Because the Shad Darshanas are a very gradual process of understanding the Supreme Absolute Truth. The Shad Darshana starting from Nyaya, Vaisheshika, Karma Mimamsa, like that it goes Sankhya, Purva Mimamsa, Uttara Mimamsa. So actually all of them, this Shad Darshanas are getting concluded by Vyasadeva in Srimad Bhagavata. This is the understanding that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has given us. And therefore, the conclusion of the Srimad Bhagavatam is actually the conclusion of the 6 Vedic Darshanas. The 6 Vedic Darshanas are actually going stage by stage. It's like Brahmeti, Paramatmeti, Bhagavaniti, Shabdyadeno. All these 3 understandings are Vedic and based on Shastra. But 2 are partial and the 3rd one is the complete one. So similarly, the Shad Darshanas also from Nyaya to Vaisheshika, like that, everything gets concluded by Vyasadeva in Srimad Bhagavatam, which is presenting pure devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna. And by also simultaneously giving up everything else. So when we speak about giving up everything else, we must understand that giving up also all these various different kinds of understandings that we may have got. Because at the end of it all those understandings are misunderstandings. And such understandings can actually affect us negatively in that final, test, that conclusive test that everyone has to face, like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, that immediately begin to worship the lotus feet of Lord Krishna. That means in the purport, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur is saying that Gaurasundara's instruction to serve Radha Govinda inspired him with his predecessor Guru's unexpressed emotions, which manifested in his heart in the form of verses. So, Kesava Bhatta, although he was very, very educated, big Pandit and everything, he had actually disregarded the final conclusion of the Shaddarshanas of the Vedas. Why? Because he had become puffed up by all the conclusions that he had arrived at by his study. That is also one of the reasons why Mahaprabhu has instructed, and Srila Prabhupada has also instructed, that if we study the Srimad Bhagavatam, that is enough. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur even went to the extent of saying that if all the books in the world are destroyed and if only Srimad Bhagavatam is remaining, that would, save all of us. So that is the value, that is the worth, or what can we say, the invaluable jewel that is available to us in the form of Srimad Bhagavatam, which presents the conclusion of all Vedas. But it is very difficult to understand, because studying the Vedas means automatically you will get the name of a big Pandit, and the more Upanishad you can quote, people will be, in awe of you, because it takes a lot of practice, as I said. And if you know how to argue down a point, Yamunacharya became very famous. He was only 11 years old when he was arguing with that Pandit. So the Pandit told him that, I will state a point, you have to prove it, and then you have to disprove it yourself. Then I will accept you. And Yamunacharya, at the age of 11, he did each and every sentence that was spoken. He proved it right, and then he subsequently proved it wrong. It's a very interesting episode in the Sri Vaishnava history of Yamunacharya. So, Vedic knowledge means you can do all these circuses. And it also tells, how Yamunacharya became very enamored by all that, by the king, and immediately the queen gave him half the kingdom and all, and he was, completely, he went out of the way. He completely forgot what he was meant to do in life. And then another Acharya had to go and, somehow feed him prasadam and then bring him out of that situation before he became the Yamunacharya that he was. So that particular history also teaches us very clearly that although you may have this, it is great to have knowledge, but it is also very dangerous to have that kind of knowledge. It's very dangerous to have that kind of knowledge. And also, when we speak about not associating, we must know that if we associate with these kind of Pandits, it is also very dangerous for us, because we will be in awe and reverence of their Panditya, of their knowledge, and then we may think, because they will, give up or give out the aura of somebody very invincible. And then immediately we become very much attracted, because anything that looks invincible, we will become attracted. That is why ultimately everybody becomes attracted to Krishna, because he is the ultimately invincible one. So anybody who has even a small sparkle of that, an iota of that invincibility we see in anybody, immediately we become, the ultimate ha is meant for Krishna only, because he is ultimately invincible, he is ultimate knowledgeable, he is the ultimate source of knowledge, everything ultimate. So that conclusion only Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is telling here to Keshav Pandit, you come to that conclusion. What? Start serving Krishna immediately now. So actually, from this instruction of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, we understand that the standard of ultimate knowledge is immediate service of Krishna. That means if I have reached the topmost level of knowledge, that means immediately I surrender to Krishna and serve only him and not anybody else. That is why in the 175th verse, that is why Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is saying that knowing that the devotees immediately give up all other material endeavors and engage in the service of the lotus feet of the Lord. Because they understand that all other endeavors are simply a waste of time. And time is something that we don't have. We are under a misunderstanding that we have. You see, time factor is Krishna, don't forget. You know? So the more we say, I don't have time to serve, the more time I am losing. Or the more we say, I have time to serve in future, that also is a misunderstanding. Because I don't have time, I have time, both these things are a misunderstanding because Krishna is controlling the time. We are not. So how do we know whether we have or we don't have? That is why Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says that immediately the devotee gives up all other endeavors. So giving up all other endeavors means also giving up trying to become perfectly knowledgeable about the Vedas. We may think, as I said, knowledge is a good thing. Knowledge may be a good thing, but it is not always a very good thing because it can be a dangerous thing if it is not understood properly. That is why we need the guidance of somebody like Srila Prabhupada who can actually put our ego in its right place. You know, because all this kind of ability that we may have, that we may acquire over a period of time, will all cause our false ego to grow like nothing. You know? That is why we need the purports of A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada to smash that false ego. So, you know, when we read one sentence, like Prabhupada says, you know, one sentence, he reads one page, he reads, it will change his life. Like that, we need an acharya like that, who will put our false ego in its place so that we are properly engaged without any misunderstanding. With proper understanding, we are engaged in the service of the lotus feet of Krishna with all humility. It's very, very important. Humility can come only in the absence of false ego. Right? As long as this false ego is standing up like, you know, the Ananta Shesha, with all the fana drawn out, you know, where will we have humility? Our false ego will be showing all its hood like Kaliya and dancing behind our head. So in that condition, humility never comes. And as long as humility does not come, there is no proper service also to the lotus feet of the Lord. So again, to smash that, we require the grace of Srila Prabhupada through his purports. So disassociating with material things, materialistic people, materialistic conceptions, and associating with devotees, and associating with the Mahatma like Srila Prabhupada through his purports, immediately we will start serving Krishna right now, right here. Because Srila Prabhupada always said that devotional service is something to be done in the present. It has been done in the present. We cannot say that, okay, now I know all these things, I shall do. No. Because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says immediately. Immediately means now. If we are not doing immediately, that means we have not gained knowledge. That means we are ignorant. So any spiritual activity that we want to keep putting off, any spiritual progress that we want to keep putting off, they are all actually manifestations of our ignorance. It is only because of our ignorance that we are thinking that I will do it tomorrow. I will do it in the future. Not like that. So these are all the crux of the instructions given by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to Keshava Kashmiri, so that, on one side to smash his ego, and on the other side, Mahaprabhu, through Keshava Kashmiri, is also instructing everyone that the ultimate aim of knowledge is to serve Krishna. And if that service to Krishna is happening, that means you have got all the knowledge. Not in the sense that you will quote all the Sanskrit, in the sense that you have got the essence of it. We must always understand that the essence is more important than the form. Yamidam pushpitam vacham, Krishna tells Arjuna in Bhagavad Gita. If somebody is enamored by the flowery language of the Vedas, he cannot be properly situated and become Skhidaprajna. So we should not be enamored by the flowery language. We should not become puffed up because we are able to express that flowery language very well, because we take all these things as some sort of improvement, or I am better than the next one. No. As long as we understand what is the essence, that's enough. At the end of the day, that is what matters. And Krishna is also accepting that essence only. Yesterday I was reading, so where it was saying that the acharyas say that Krishna is Makhan Chor. Krishna is Makhan Chor. I think we discussed this yesterday, so some of you may have heard. Krishna is Makhan Chor. He is not Doodh Chor, he is not Milk Chor, and he is not Buttermilk Chor, he is not Dahi Chor. He is Makhan Chor. And all the leelas are about him, Navanita Chora, the freshly churned butter he likes to steal. So there is an acharya interpretation to this, is that this makhan or butter is the essence of the milk. Because the milk is turned into curd, and then that curd is churned and churned and churned and churned, and finally that butter comes to the top. And then Krishna takes that butter. You see. So by doing devotional service and churning and churning and churning, we perfect our devotional service, and that perfected devotional service, which is like butter, soft like butter, pure prema, that will be taken by Krishna. That's all he is asking for. He is not asking for all the other things. So that is the essence. Krishna wants the essence. And Krishna will steal away the essence. And then once he steals, see what happened to all the gopis of Vrindavan. They were all transcendently blissful when Krishna stole butter. Although they made a show of complaining to Yashoda, they were practically looking forward each day whether Krishna will come to my house today to steal the butter. So stealing butter, pastime of Krishna, is actually the topmost transcendental pastime of the Lord. And by immediately, here and now, engaging in devotional service to the lotus feet of Krishna, we are engaging in that churning business. And we need to churn without wasting time. And we need to continuously churn. I don't know if many of you have seen your grandmother's mother's churning curd to take out butter. You should know, if you know, I am from a village basically, so I have seen my grandmother and my mother do it. You have to continuously churn. If you leave it and go, again all that thing will scatter off. Then again it takes same amount of effort, you have to repeat it. So while they are churning, no, they never give it and go and do some other thing. I've seen my grandmother, when she stops, she has to attend to something else, and my mother will churn. So that process goes on continuously, so that the butter comes out. Otherwise, no, again and again you have to. It's like that. So if we stop churning and if we become distracted by all these other, things, what happens is that we will lose, and then next Janma start churning again. So we don't want to do that. So Mahaprabhu is instructing, do it now, start churning now. Get that butter ready when the time is ripe, so that Krishna can accept it. Sri Chaitanya Bhagavat ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna, thank you so much.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you so much for such a beautiful, beautiful class. Very grateful to you, Prabhu. Thank you so much. And the way you explained everything is very nice, especially regarding the time. If you say I don't have time for the service, is not the right. And if you say I have the time for the service, it's also not correct. Yes, it's everything in the hands of Krishna. Only the thing is we need to have a desire. So much, Prabhuji. Very, very beautiful, very nice points you have given to us. Very, very grateful to you, Prabhu. We open the forum for the question and answers. Please go ahead. If you have any questions and realizations, please ask to the Prabhuji right now.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you for such a wonderful session, Prabhuji. Like it was exactly like what you said. Yes, this pride, it can just slowly creep in, and this want of false prestige and name and fame, that is something that is a silent killer that can actually easily kill our bhakti. So that was one very wonderful point. And I also liked how you were talking about people who, even if they have an iota of in that invincible characteristic of the Lord, then people get spontaneously attracted to them, because and then that's why we sometimes end up getting so attracted to some preachers, because of just the how their screen presence is and how attractive their speech is. So we have to also be careful about that and careful of our association. Thank you so much, Prabhuji. It was a wonderful session. Very nice class. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you so much for the very beautiful class. Something that struck to me is that we don't stop the churning process. So, and how much effort it takes to reach on from the beginning. I was just contemplating on that. So thank you for that reminder, and thank you for the very beautiful class. And I just echo the same points that the others also mentioned. So thank you again for your valuable association, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Dandavat Pranam. Thank you so much for wonderful class, giving us, enlighten that the devotional service is what we do in present. Time is Krishna. We should never think that we have time, we will have time. What every day, day-to-day life, what we do, we have to be very strong in that. And next is very important is never be puffed up. It's very, very true, Prabhu. And it's really Dandavat Pranam to Srila Prabhupada to give us such a wonderful purport. As you said, even one page or one chapter purport we read, it changes us, our reality. We go to the reality of our life, actually. Really, Prabhu. Thank you so much, Prabhu. Dandavat Pranam. Hare Krishna.
Is there anybody having any more questions? Induleka Mataji, do you have one more question?
Sorry, Mataji, I just had a question for Prabhuji. So Prabhuji was talking about and also Chaitanya Mahaprabhu here is talking about how it is so important for us to take to devotional service right here, right now, and serve the Lord. Somehow I see that there is so much difficulty in, getting to that point where we can serve him wholeheartedly at that minute for everybody, like even in the family. Like, so how does it happen, Prabhuji? Is it because it's not time for us yet? What is the secret to it? Like,
Well, what I have heard from my seniors is that actually become better recipient of the mercy of Krishna, we have to step outside of our comfort zone. You know, what happens to us is that most of the time we want to do everything within our comfort zone. That means I will do all these things as long as I am comfortable doing it. You know? And whenever I find it is not so comfortable, then I always postpone it, or I find a reason why I am not able to. And then I also tell the Lord that you understand my position. This is, I think, most grihasthas go through this, and we also have this hope that Lord understands my situation, so it's like that. So we have to learn to, or we have to endeavor to step outside of our comfort zone, and that we must understand that it is not that always I will be comfortable in performing devotional service. In fact, in this material world, in material condition, we will never be fully comfortable in performing devotional service, because that is actually an incongruent thing along with that cannot go along with the material life. So always it is going to be a challenge. It is never going to be easy. So we should know that it will become easy when we are completely out of this materialistic conception of things. Until then, we have to struggle, and we have to very bravely put up with the struggle, not to act as if everything is comfortable. And we have to accept that it is not comfortable. We have to accept that there are difficulties, and we bravely face the difficulties. Sometimes we fail, sometimes so it's like that, Mataji. I mean, that's as a grihastha perspective. I am also in the same boat. So this is how I deal with it, Hare Krishna.
A wonderful answer, Prabhuji. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Krishna Prabhu, go ahead with your question.
Hare Krishna. Govardhan, Giridhar Prabhu, Dandot Pranam.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
I got one question. You were telling about these people who are doing some dharma, but they got intention to get the name and fame and all, some puja man pratishtha and all. So I find that dharma, artha, kama, moksha, actually it is, they are doing dharma to enjoy. They want to get sense gratification. They want money, they want to enjoy, and they're looking for moksha. So actually the adharma, it's not dharma, actually it's adharma only. Krishna consciousness is that you should not go for any, you should be selfless, and you should not expect to become boss. You should not try to get name and fame. You should do only for the pleasure of the Lord. But here they are looking for their pleasure and showing they're doing money for Krishna. I'm doing this puja, that puja. But in the behind is they want the name, fame, puja, man, pratishtha, all. The other one you told is dharma for more and more sense gratification. They want to do nice puja and nice building, I'll get Mercedes-Benz car, everything, enjoy. Yeah. So that means this is not what Prabhupada has taught us. No selfless attitude, no surrender mood, and you want to enjoy. That you want to suffer actually. They're all people, Muda people, foolish people.
Absolutely, bro. Totally agree.
Wonderful class, people. I had to go out and come back. I like your class always.
Thank you, bro.
Thank you, Sukata Krishna Prabhu.
Thank you, Vats.
Are there any more questions for Prabhuji? Realizations, any questions? Okay, if there are no more questions and realizations, once again, Prabhu, thank you so much. As usual, whenever you come, we get to learn so many things. Thank you so much for your association.
Thank you,
and we look forward for your association again, Prabhu. I'd like to offer my obeisance to you and all the Vaishnavas assembled on the call. Vancha kalpatarupyasya kripa sindhu. Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah. Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrinda ki
Jai.
Jai. Jai.
Govardhan ki Prabhuji ki jai.
Yeah. Prabhuji, Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam. Very nice
Hare
class.
Dandavat Pranam, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Thank you everyone for joining today's class. We'll meet again tomorrow. Hari Bol. The call for today.
No.